Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed the food, the people, everyone. So yeah, today I'll be kicking us off. We spend an awful lot of time in marketing talking about funnels, typically about how they are leaking. But what if the core problem wasn't that they are leaking? What if they were clogged near the bottom? Sorry, can you hear me if I go here? No. Okay, sorry for that. This paradigm shift, changing the focus from the leaks to the clogs, is a quick 5-chapter adventure that I'd like to take you on today. I'm not going to keep you for all 45 minutes, only for 5 chapters, and we can have a Q&A session a bit later. It is a simple shift in focus. However, it's crucial because ultimately it's the conversions, not awareness, that is the fastest financial lever that then funds the marketing awareness campaigns. But let's all agree on this one thing first. Vanity metrics don't pay the bills, pipeline and close one do. We also know that long multi-stakeholder sales cycles make it notoriously hard to prove marketing channel ROI. I'm sure all of us have experienced that. And we also know that the closer the lead is to revenue, the muddier the machine attribution. Again, we experience these problems in our day-to-day. Has anyone felt fear during reporting for a LinkedIn awareness campaign? Anyone? Me, for sure. It's very hard to make up the metrics and to prove the ROI. So therefore, could we maybe engineer a metric to get clarity on which of our efforts actually contributes to the pipeline? And the answer is that yes, we can. And to do so, step number 1 is to create a free text self-report attribution field on your contact forms. Don't make it a drop-down. Let the person tell in their own words where did they get exposed to your brand. Because particularly in the longer sales cycles, there's probably going to be multiple touch points that they could reference. And step number 2, once we have this unstructured data floating in our CRM system, we do need to make a workflow to actually categorize the data for us. So therefore we can make really nice reports as part of our dashboards in the next grilling session and by our board. And this nicely actually brings us to chapter 2. I wasn't lying when I said this is going to be a quick adventure. And you'll notice that all of these insights that we are delivering today are very, very actionable, because one of the core goals for me today is to make sure that once you leave this event, you have few tools in your back pocket that you can just go and implement. So, chapter number 2. What did I mean by saying that the funnel might be clogged near the bottom? I meant that oftentimes we fixate on the leaks, not the clogs, because we might not be aware that there is an issue somewhere on the pipeline. Typically, improving that last mile of the funnel actually beats pouring ever more leads into it. And more specifically, I mean improving these metrics. So pipeline to revenue creation, high intent lead to pipeline conversion, and website visitors to high intent lead conversion metrics. So 3 core metrics that can signify whether there is an issue somewhere down the funnel. As I mentioned earlier, it's conversion, not awareness, that's the fastest financial growth lever that then funds the awareness programs. And here in the graph here, you can see the funnel displayed not as a funnel, it's more as a journey. So we start by demand creation here on the left, going to demand capture, demand conversion. So this is top of the funnel, moving towards the bottom of the funnel. And the second line here, you see some of the things that we have control over. So unknown audience, moving into website visitors, which then become high intent website conversions, that then become pipeline and revenue. So very simplified illustration of the funnel. And where do we start? Typically, we might be inclined to start from the top, because that is where the most shiny LinkedIn campaigns live, right? But what we propose is to actually start your optimization efforts from the bottom up. Because even small improvements into those metrics that on the previous slide were in red, even small improvements in those would make an impact. And more importantly, by implementing that self-reported attribution that I mentioned in the key takeaway number 1, very quickly you'll be able to tell which of your marketing efforts you should prioritize. And not all of them, which ones should be prioritized. So, actionable takeaway number 2 is run a conversion rate optimization audit based on this diagram that I showed here. Identify your key conversion gaps and assess whether your efforts are in the right spots or if it's a clogged funnel situation. You'll also note these cute QR codes in various places in the deck. You can follow them for more how-tos and more information how to actually, for example, run the audit, because unfortunately I can't keep you up here all night talking about them. So yeah, if you just get it, you'll be able to go to a specific guide on it. Let's talk about your website. Your website remains one of the key influences on your pipeline because the majority of your leads and their buying committees will be exposed to it at one point or another. And I don't mean let's optimize the website views of the pages or the bounce rate. Let's focus on things that truly matter. And specifically in this scenario is the website visitor to high intent lead conversion rate. And I'm sure all of us are thinking about the AI and the AI SEO and how it's going to change this top part of the diagram. I do have to note that the website visitor to high intent lead conversion rate should be one of the metrics that remain comparable with the history, so to say, in this shifting marketing landscape. And what do I mean by let's improve some things on the website? More specifically, I mean, let's focus website optimization on these must-haves. As you'll see, again, everything is quite actionable and implementable. I've not tried putting things there which will require a whole buying committee and £1 million budget. So the things that we recommend doing are having a clear value proposition, having intuitive navigation, having specific call to actions. By this we mean, if you want the person to have a demo, call it, let's have a demo. If you want the person to talk with the sales team, call the button, talk to sales. We also mean showcasing your product, showcasing the UI that you sell. One of the other things that we notice sometimes floats on websites, but not necessarily in the most obvious places, is the social proof and other evidence that builds trust, particularly for your buying committees, particularly for your buyers. You know, they want to know that you are certified and other evidence elements. And of course, lastly is speed and performance. Well, sorry, that's a bit of a spoiler alert. What I thought doing next would be fun if I picked a few of your websites and actually did a quick audit on them. And don't worry, I have anonymized them because we do not want to point fingers. So yeah, let's go through some of the examples. Example A. I did want to call it specimen A, but then I thought maybe it's a bit too much. But yeah, example A. As you can see here, we have a very clear CTA, contact an expert. We have very intuitive navigation. We have very clear value proposition. And we have social proof above the fold. Top marks. Example B. What do we have here? So in this specific audit, I focused specifically on the contact us journeys. You can see that on the website, we have both contact at the top of the menu, as well as get in touch. Big blue pill in the middle of the screen. What happens next? We open a pop-up and then we follow the instructions. Few of the improvements here would be to change get in touch to, for example, talk to sales. Because where we are met next, this text essentially tries to funnel the visitors to fill the correct form. But we cannot rely on people to truly follow the text instruction above the form. So therefore, we want to make sure that when the person clicks on something, they are in the right place. So by changing the get in touch to be talk to sales, you would naturally deter any people who want to apply for careers, because people who want careers, they don't necessarily want to talk to sales, right? We also have few accessibility considerations. For example, the message field being of equal length to your first name. And of course, one of the other things I need to point out is the fact that there was a server connection error when I actually tried contacting the company. So just things to keep in mind. So to sum up, core things that would be helpful in this scenario is to rename the button to talk to sales, talk to an expert, whatever is the next natural step for your product or service. Remove the text instruction, because by improving the clarity within the button and allowing people to go to contact us if they do have more generic queries, you'll naturally create data structure in your CRM to be able to tell which one is belonging where. We also want to, of course, increase the message field, add the self-report attribution field, and lastly, ideally, we truly want that to be its own page versus a pop-up, because then you can also supplement the information with further social proof, just to give that last nudge before the person submits the form. Next example here is a bit of a mixed bag. So we do have a clear button. We have request a demo, which is great. But then when it comes to the value proposition and the display of it, there are a few problems that I do need to point out. Firstly, when I looked at it on my 13-inch laptop, I could see only expert in randomization and under the cutoff. With my 14-inch laptop, I could see the first 2 lines, but never I was able to see the full value proposition. The tagline, albeit great, because it's part of the brand building exercise, unfortunately, it wasn't as clear what the company exactly did and whether I, as a lead, have landed in the right place. Moreover, the tagging in the backend regarding H1s and H2s did indicate that the tagline was, for example, H1. So again, few tweaks for above the fold to make it clear once the person lands on the website. Yes, we are the right solution partner for what you need. The other few bits and pieces that I need to point out here is the lack of case studies. For a company like this, it would be great to showcase all the amazing work that they are doing. And moreover, currently the social proof, as you can see here on the bottom line, that actually was the second to last on the page. I think we should shout about it from above the fold versus last thing on the page. So, the key takeaways from this little exercise. We would welcome you to implement as many of the discussed quick conversion rate optimization suggestions as feasible within your CMS and, of course, within your compliance requirements. And here is just a quick recap of what they were. Clear value proposition, intuitive navigation, specific CTAs, use of product and UI imagery, social proof and other evidence that supports your stance, and, of course, speed and performance. Typically, the most easy things to implement for marketers are the value proposition clarity, the CTA wording, the imagery, as well as ungating the gated guides. You'll notice that I purposely didn't call it out because I feel like, there's been a few years where we've been shouting from the rooftops, ungate your guides, ungate the guides. So I didn't want to be, repetitive, but definitely ungate the gated guides. And yeah, of course, depending on your CMS, you might need to involve a broader stakeholder base to resolve the rest of them. But there's definitely some quick wins that you can start with this week. Cool. So if we assume that we've improved that, what's next? Again, we won't have time to talk about all of the ways that we could build an unknown audience and then convert it into website visitors. I thought it would be most useful to focus on LinkedIn this morning, and more specifically, the Algorithm Insights Report 2025, which is an annual thing that a person called Richard van der Blom, you might have seen him on LinkedIn, collates every year, and therefore he has a lot of data to truly tell us about what works, what doesn't, and how LinkedIn is changing. So yeah, these are a few of the things that we found the most useful for our clients right at this moment. I'll start with how does LinkedIn algorithm behave nowadays? So, LinkedIn has an increased focus on relevance over reach. This means that niche expertise and sustained conversions, aka people conversions, outperform generic content. LinkedIn also prioritizes quality interactions, and that also means your dwell time, and you won't see dwell time in your clicks, so make sure that you look at both of these metrics. We also need to note that content remains an essential tool for visibility on LinkedIn. However, the key thing that has changed is who posts such content. And again, all of your companies have LinkedIn pages, right? So let's look at the next graph of the harsh reality that we are living in. Here we go. So the table on the right-hand side shows how LinkedIn has changed its preferences over the years for various types of content. I've also marked up in few colors the most important pieces of information within the table. I'll start from the middle of the table with the most scary metric. As you can see here, organic company content has dropped to 1% of visibility on LinkedIn, which is a crazy metric, right? When I saw it, I was like, that was my reaction to it. We also can see that there is promoted company content who is still in considerable number 3 spot in regards to visibility, but it's increasingly dropping down. We also see that LinkedIn ads are not as widely shown as before. And the most stark difference, as you can see here towards the bottom, is the single creative post. So what are some of the key takeaways from this data, from this table? Company pages are seeing their organic reach disappear. So next time you look at your LinkedIn reports, don't be surprised why, if you're posting from your LinkedIn company page, why it's not receiving as much impressions and engagement. We see that LinkedIn ads and promoted content remain a substantial part of the feed. But how long? We will monitor the market. But for now, it's still something to tap into. More specifically, tall leader ads outperform all other ad formats, because this very closely links with what LinkedIn wants to show their people. They want to show truly personal content that they might be willing to engage with from niche experts. We're also seeing that companies rely on paid promotions and employee advocacy because we kind of have to. Because again, as you see on the table on the right-hand side, the organic company content is disappearing. And lastly, I'm sure we all have noticed this over the past few years, visual content beats verbal content. This means image and video-based storytelling is alive and well. So what would be the key takeaways from this? Step one is a bit of a rhetorical question. Whom could you give voice on LinkedIn from your company? And it doesn't have to be a single person. It could be multiple people. It could be your experts against each of the verticals. You could also then use thought leadership ads to amplify their voice. Essentially, the person wouldn't have to, do LinkedIn management themselves. You just get their voice and then use it to amplify it through your channels, through your access to LinkedIn ads. Step number 2 would be to equip your internal champions. Because again, you can't just ask the person, hi, can you give me a video? It's not really going to happen. So you have to build a system to get a constant stream, keyword being constant stream of videos and thoughts from them. It's also important that there is a foundational layer of a consistent messaging program. And you want that to make sure that your brand can be built from the same hymn book, so to say. And it also all just makes a nice, well-rounded program about your brand. And step number 3 is precision beats scale when it comes to whom you're trying to reach. Don't try marketing to the internet, market to your accounts. I'm sure you have heard of ABM marketing before, and I believe that it's more important than ever to build your ABM audience lists on LinkedIn, to which you can therefore amplify these thought leaders from your company afterwards. And this arrives us to chapter number 5. Well, the headline of the chapter is Ship Fast, Iterate Faster. I know it's easy to say, hard to implement, but let's talk through some of the mechanics. We need to acknowledge that strategy without execution is pointless. I'm sure all of us have seen the most beautiful strategy on paper, but somehow it doesn't really get implemented. So therefore, the value of the strategy diminishes. I would also like to highlight that few mini experiments within the compliance guardrails beats one perfect execution. And also, we do need to prioritize execution based on the influence on the pipeline. And this directly links with the graph that we showed earlier. What we typically see at Blend is that sometimes over-planning can stall campaign launches. Much more agile pilots let us learn while the sales clock ticks. And also, because I know we all are dealing with the compliance environment, we could start with low-risk channels first, for example, implementing the web page tweaks, and then take it from there once we have had some of those quick wins. And here's some of the examples that we have seen. I would like us all to think that authenticity, particularly in the age of AI, will be valued. So don't be afraid to be authentic. See how it goes in your market. We personally have found that more authentic ads do gain more attention. And this also goes for your other types of content. Your thought leadership videos don't require over-the-top tech or post-production. Start authentically and iterate as you prove the concept, as you get the wider stakeholder base from your company on board. And when we say authentic, we don't mean tacky. You still have to have some elegance about it, but prioritize on authenticity over planning and getting the best tech in the world, and then a year later launching the first video. And the same could be applied also to your product videos. Ship fast, iterate faster. As a conclusion of this whirlwind journey so far, remember, we start closest to the revenue, we unclog any clogs, and then we step on the gas. If you do only one thing this week, run the pipeline backwards audit. It should tell you exactly where your other tactics and optimizations should focus. You'll also note that these month 1, month 2, month 3 represent the key takeaways that I was discussing today. So month 1 delivers on the key takeaway number 1, which was implement your self-report attribution fields, as well as takeaway number 2, which was do a conversion rate optimization audit. Month 2 tackles quick win number 3, which was website quick wins, implementing them, not just thinking about them. And number 4, which was LinkedIn champions. Month 3 focuses on shipping fast. If there's only one thing you do the audit, and the rest of the things will fall in place. Thank you. That was it from myself. As you can see, we do have half an hour. So if you have any questions to me, please let me know. Gentleman in the back. Yes. Yeah, so all of that will depend on your audience size. If you're talking about reaching 60,000 people across the globe, you probably will need a bit more statistically relevant data, right? So I would say build your audience in a way that you can very quickly get the data and then go from there, because there's generally not really one answer, because it all depends on how big audience size you have. But in general, I would say on LinkedIn, you can get an idea pretty quickly, particularly if you use the even ad rotation. So therefore, LinkedIn evenly rotates all of your ads. You could get the data quickly. But again, it depends on your audience size. Oh, go on.
Thank you for a great talk. I've also got a question as well. So it's going to be a two-parter. What is a good visitor to high-intent lead ratio for high-intent leads? And then the second is what sort of uplift you see after you complete your scenario or these main changes?
Yeah, so the first question was, what is a good... Let me open up the right slide. There we go. So the question was, what is a good rate for this one here? Unfortunately, I have to say it depends, because it truly depends on amount of visitors you have, and then how quickly are they looking to move down the funnel, as well as what kind of offer you have. If you have a demo offer, you're probably going to see a higher amount of conversion rates. If you have something like talk to sales, it's probably going to be a bit lower. If you have try our product for free, you're going to have even higher number. So it truly, truly, truly depends on the number of visitors you have and what is the offer that you have. Dan?
Is this working now? Okay. Well, I was just going to try and help answer that because I've been obsessing over that metric for quite a while now, and seen a few of like our clients and communities I'm part of like asked about that metric, and the really, really poor websites typically have below like 0.5% conversion rate. I'd say if you're hitting anywhere between 1.5 and 2%, you're doing a really good job. But yeah, around that.
Sorry, I want to jump on then this one too. I agree with Dan that somewhere between 1.5 and 2% still holds true in most instances, but the things that will really impact it that most people need to think about are, do you drive a lot of careers information through your site? That's going to actually impact your conversion rate of demo requests or whatever your MQL metric is. Another thing that can really impact it is if you've got any kind of customer login. And so making sure that if you are in a situation where you have some sort of customer login on your site, you're separating out those metrics so that you're retaining visibility on your actual marketing metrics. That's really critical. That will make a big difference to how you look in front of your stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, the team, for the numbers. And the second part of the question was...
What sort of uptick can you see? So you need to take a website that's 0.5%. No changes. What increases do you see over what time frame? Is it practically instant? What does that look like?
There can be instances where it is instant if the quality of the traffic that you get also is good. Because sometimes we end up in situations where, in one that I've personally seen is, we took over an account where a lot of traffic was from a Halloween poem. Out of all the things that they can generate traffic for, it was a Halloween poem. We had some with Microsoft Teams backgrounds, absolutely irrelevant traffic, generating traffic, but actually irrelevant traffic. So in those instances, when you take away that spam traffic, you can see different results versus if the actual traffic quality of the website has been good. So again, I don't have numbers from the top of my head. I don't know, Dan, Amanda, maybe you have, but it is a tricky question to answer because it truly depends on what is the size that you are dealing with and the quality of the traffic in the first place. And of course, your offer as well, like I mentioned, that truly impacts it.
Well, Phil, do you have an answer on this?
I can say that in many of the cases where we've applied what I consider to be our in-house best practice to this particular objective, the increase is usually between 100 and 400% on the high intent lead generation metric, meaning you're getting significantly more quality leads, close to pipeline through the same website effectively from the same traffic as before. And that's usually an instant or overnight change because of the positive adjustments you make to the customer journey, the information architecture, navigation, user experience. It doesn't happen in every case, but it's very common to see quite sizable increases like that.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, so even before you start ungating the content, you could have a look at what you call a split funnel analysis. You look at the leads that came through filling in the lead gen forms, and then the ones who came through your actual high intent forms. You get those numbers first. Once you see the reality, the likelihood is that you will want to ungate all of your content, because what you truly want to do is to tell the engines, search engines, tell the crawlers all the good things that you have, which therefore then contributes towards your topical authority, which therefore bring more and more highly intent leads to your website, versus the ones who just wanted to access that content. So essentially you are removing that friction from the user's journey. So unfortunately the answer is ideally you do want to ungate all of them and rely on the actual people who want to buy from you to truly submit the forms. Because none of us likes to submit forms, right? So therefore there's no really, let's ungate this one, let's gate that one, and answer to that question.
Yeah, great talk, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This is coming from obviously pharma and hub that we are creating at the moment. Would you suggest to have the website completely locked? They come in, register for them to get the content, or is it to have it open a little bit and talk about what they can get when they register, and then give them more? Because our kind of key is to get the consents so we can build a database and communicate at the end of it. Do you have experience with that? What is the best way to do?
Is this specifically in like a membership portal scenario, or is it completely unknown?
This is like an educational hub where you can obviously search for it, but we do quite a lot of media, so you can drive them through like congresses and digital banners and emails, so they will land there, but then we want them to see some content, but then also we've got some webinars, for example, they have to register to go and see them, or some resources to download. But the problem is, when they get to that point, we might lose them, and we want to get a consent.
Are you getting the consent just to remarket to them afterwards, or is there any other reason
to communicate and get obviously our sales team to communicate with them as well?
Yeah. So the best approach in this version of scenario would be similar to the previous question, where do your split funnel analysis and then ungate the information to be easily accessible. But you can then put, for example, slide-ins or CTAs within the page to willingly let people to subscribe to your newsletter, for example, or for example, the next webinar. When it comes to webinars, definitely collect the information, and that's probably the easiest way how you can build that database to remarket. But for example, just to watch a video or just to read a guide, just don't gate them. Make sure that your content truly shines, that the person actually wants to submit their email to then keep up to date with the information that you have. Because the idea is that we do not want to put hurdles in front of people to get to that good content. We want them to truly experience it without having to submit another form, typically 6 fields or more. So yeah. Dan?
Sorry, just to add on to that as well, because having gone through the process of ungating content at a life science company previously, it can be challenging, like organizationally, a challenge to get over the barrier of metrics and reporting and those kind of things. But when we think about gated content and what we're trying to do by ungating it all is essentially to provide access to our content, to our educational experience, to our connection with our brand to as many people as possible. When you get into the realms of gating that and only 2 to 5% of people actually accessing that content, all you're doing is limiting reach, limiting the amount of people who are viewing that content. And I mean, I'm happy to show anybody a split funnel analysis that we've done after this, because it truly shows the conversion rate of leads that you might capture through those channels into closed won compared to high intent leads who would have seen your content anyway but remained anonymous up to the point of conversion, essentially. So it's a really, really cool analysis.
Hi there. So we previously used PDFs that were gated, then moved to PDFs which are ungated. I'm now suggesting a radical move of moving from PDF to actual full HTML. Is that a successful strategy? Can we then build on that to make a stronger communications?
Of course. So if I understand correctly, so you went from gated PDFs to PDFs that are ungated to actual web page content directly on the page.
That's my next move with the business.
Okay.
Because obviously we are spending a lot of time with design, development, backwards and forwards, costs and time. And I've said, well, the web's here. We can create content which is quite straightforward. And we can see metrics on what people are engaging with, what they're copying.
Yes, yeah.
see what's important, and then build it forward. So what's the next step? How do we get engagement or commitments to engage more if we give our content in a PDF, in a web format?
Yes, so of course one of the first things is you get speed. And I remember from the conversation that you're in HubSpot already, which is awesome, which means that you can actually empower non-developers to build these pages with the awesome functionalities of HubSpot. The next step, truly, I think in this right moment is that there's a lot of shifting plans happening in the world right now, particularly when it comes to AI SEO. I was actually speaking with Phil earlier today where there is some content that will need to be rethought. You know, just creating guides, specifically informational guides that then get, eaten by these LLMs and then spit out their end without actually citing you. That, of course, will change the game for this specific approach. So, yeah, right at this moment, if we play by the old SEO playbook, yes, it's great because you build topical authority, therefore you can strengthen your other pieces and therefore strengthen your commercial keywords. But in the new era, there will be a change to the strategy. Where do those specific pages sit? Because I have a feeling that they might diminish in value, but you might be then maybe able to create them into video format. Or for example, give it to your thought leader as a brief, so they can infuse it with their thoughts in a video format, for example. That might be the next evolution of those pieces, which unfortunately will not contribute to SEO as much as they have in the past. Of course, yeah, for all the crawlers, because LLMs are still crawlers. They somehow need to ingest the information, but the information that they then show to the user will not necessarily be attributed to your company. So, there is some brand affinity lost essentially in that process.
So just coming back to you, I've been talking to my business saying that people coming to the website is not important. That could be phased out in the future. We want our message to be wherever people surface an answer, whether it's in an LLM, so they get our information as definitive. That is the next stage for how we need to kind of shift our content. So that the more content we can get out in the public space that can get consumed should make that a bit easier, I believe. Is that a faulty thinking or not?
Yes. But again, you have to remember whether your name will be against the passage or not. Particularly when people do deep research. They do deep research on topic X. You'll get an amazing report and then 40 different sources at the end of it. But there's no direct correlation unless the person truly goes and looks for the source for that certain passage, that it was from you, not from your competitor or someone else. So the difference that I'm trying to illustrate here is the queries of commercial nature and queries of the informational nature. And typically those pillar pages can be of informational nature. So if someone looked, what is the best company for X, and you came through because you have built a topical authority, that is awesome because your name is there and the person can then, take the information forwards and finish their market research that way. But if it's a general informational query where unfortunately the LLM displays the result from your pillar page, but doesn't cite you as directly, that's where that value starts to become grey. Because yes, it's great, you got cited, but is that citation truly shown and attributed to your company as far as the user is concerned, without digging deeper, essentially?
The question is how do we do that? Obviously, if we are making content available and it's going to search it anyway, how do we make sure we are cited as the resource?
I guess the best thing you could do right now is to explore some of the AI monitoring tools. I've seen a few in the market where you type in the query that you want to rank for. I don't know what's going to be the new rank equivalent in the new era, but essentially rank for. And it actually shows you, okay, if we run this query across the 4 of the AI models, was our brand mentioned? Who else was mentioned, and where we mentioned at the top or where we mentioned at the bottom. So that is one way how to monitor where do you currently stand for the queries that are of your interest to show for. And again, a few of the queries that I've run, they don't even mention a brand. It's a commercial query, but they actually don't mention the brand. So maybe doing an audit of where do my core keywords fall within the AI are they mentioning brands or are they just using information to feed back to the user? That could be step number one. But again, I feel like that audit, you could do it today. If you did it in a month's time, it might be changed. So it is a very, very, very moving scenario. And one of the talks today is about AI. So I wonder if there's going to be more precise information there when it comes to the AI matters. Dan?
Just one more question, Adam.
Sorry, it was actually just building on what they were saying is maybe it'll be covered in the session later, and I know we're over already, but the concept of the AI SEO, from everything you're saying, excuse me, for those of you who's worked in digital marketing for a long time, sounds a lot like going back to the old SEO link building that we used to do. So in terms of, I know we've got the session later, but yeah, it feels very familiar, but also very kind of using the old tactics, which was just spreading content everywhere and hoping that it would be picked up by the LLM. And also, you know, what do you guys see from that perspective in terms of, you know, all the challenges that were faced with that when it was in place? So the relevancy and those kind of things, is it, you know, websites will be a source and there'll be a cited source, but do you see it more that you need to be publishing in lots of places and backlinks and everything else as kind of the old style SEO that we used to do for link building?
Yeah, so we are literally in the middle of figuring out what will SEO look for our clients as a service. But some of the things that I can tell you for sure is that the way AI ingests information is not really pages, it's more passages. So therefore, it's going to be focused more on passage optimization, making sure that your passage can answer whatever is the thing that the user might ask. The other thing we need to take into account is that, you know, all of our ChatGPTs and Geminis have a memory. So they will know that you guys work in life sciences and your position and your knowledge level about X, Y, and Z. So therefore, that passage itself would be tailored to your sector, to your industry, to your geography, etc. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but yeah, two things for sure is that the information definitely will be more personalized to your specific context, and the second one is that the passage will outtrump the actual page.
Cool. Yeah. Should we wrap up there? One thing I would say on the AI search front is that Phil over there, myself, and Krissy are in the weeds. I'd say, Phil, you're probably more in like under the weeds, in the core, the earth. Like, yeah, we've got some good insight, I think, on like how the large language models are surfacing content. It's early days yet, but I think, you know, we can probably give some good advice and help there.
So it's a scary time to be a marketer because of all the changes that are taking place. One of the things that I'm not clear on yet is how much effort it's going to take to move the needle on discoverability through AI as an interface. And until that question's been answered by others who have more money to waste than I'm not going to move quickly or too far on that. I've always been focused on where can I put my limited budget or that of my clients that will drive the most reliable, predictable ROI possible. And previously that was internal linking through content that was optimized for SEO, for example. I was actually quite sort of like negative on backlinking because the result versus the effort wasn't as reliable as creating SEO content, internally linking and driving commercial authority. Right now, I think that the smart moves are to one, really understand your pipeline. Everything should be guided by what converts into pipeline and revenue when it comes to, do you gate content? Do you create gated spaces? Do you invest in content? Do you invest in channels like LinkedIn? Pipeline is our North Star. And right now, while AI is gobbling up informational search queries and answering everybody's questions, there's real opportunity to build brand, to be the brand that people identify and associate with a category before search even gets a chance to interfere with that, and ultimately get them to your website as a result of a branded search, which AI still can't really replace, and optimize their experience so that they turn their interest into intent in your pipeline. Those two levers are still very real and readily available to pull on while we work out what the future looks like for content creation in an AI world, which may be A, very shifted towards commercial content, what is the best X for Y, and B, may require huge volumes of content that can only be created by AI to actually have an impact. that's a kind of scary world, I think, where we have to create so much content that's AI generated to impact AI. I'm not sure how that will play out. So I'd like to see everybody put their money where they can produce a really tangible, valuable result with some predictability in the meantime. I'm happy to talk about that when we have a break and answer any other questions on that subject.
Just quickly. Sorry, I'm cannibalising my own talk time now, so I think that probably makes it acceptable. I am willing to stick my neck out. Martin, who's speaking later, we used to have, we'll bring it back, Martin, won't we, the podcast at some point. We've been talking about AI and marketing on our podcast for about 2 years. And who knows Joe Polizzi? Put your hand up if you know Joe Polizzi and his Content Inc. model. He goes on and on and on about building on rented land, right? If you're using social media to distribute your content, if you're relying on getting traffic from Google, you are building on rented land. And the LLMs are the next version of rented land. So create, and it comes back to the absolute core principles of content marketing. Create content that's so good, people would be willing to pay to access it, and make yourself a destination for them to get information in your area of expertise. So they don't even go to ChatGPT for that content. They trust you. And if you want to see a really interesting place where this is already happening, go to Substack. This is where people are building newsletters, paid newsletters, where they are doing exactly this, even as individuals, and generating income from it. So I think the key question is, what content and insights can you publish that just cannot be found anywhere else? Your SME insights, research reports that you create that the AI doesn't even know have been created yet, and then make yourself a destination. So you don't have to worry about, I mean, at some point ChatGPT is going to regurgitate your report, so you have to create another one, right? So I think really, read Joe Polizzi, think about that Content Inc. model. I think that would be absolutely critical.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's wrap it up there, and then over to Paul. So thank you so much, Krissy.
Thank you.